Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Before I start on the subject, an apology. I have realised that often when I do a chatty video, I just point the camera, generally speaking, at the grow room. And I have an unfortunate habit of moving my hands and my arms when I talk. That's just the way it is. There's not a lot I can do about it. One of those unfortunate habits. But when I'm doing that sort of talky type video, one of my hands has got the camera in it. Unfortunately, the other one is free to move. And it wobbles the camera. And it makes people feel seasick. It was suggested if I'm just going to do a chatty video, I get the tripod out, and that does make sense. I'll remember it for longer chatty videos. However, hopefully this is not a long chatty video, but I'll try and stay focused on some pretty blooms. By the way, this is actually Miltoniopsis Junette, which was bought as a yellow one, and strictly speaking, this blooming is not a yellow one. But the amount of colour that's actually developed on the lip and the sepals is exceptional. It hasn't done that coloration before. The background is the palest of yellows, bordering on cream. But quite honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. I've got a yellow one. Quickly, that's the yellow one. So this one now doesn't need to be a yellow one as it was originally bought, because that colour is gorgeous. Anyway, trying to keep the camera still. The idea of this is food for thought. A better title might have been feed for thought. I've just read First Ray's monthly update. Quite a big bit about fertilisers, fertilising, and that general subject. But this is a point of order that's a rhetorical question, because I don't know the answer. But I know out there's a few chemistry type people or whatever that might have this answer. Now, First Ray recommends 25 parts per million of nitrogen, and then the rest of the elements will balance in behind. Yeah, so right, let's take that as an example. Now, in my MSU fertiliser, I have 13% of nitrogen. So let's do example one. Example one is I've mixed up some feed and I've got 100 parts per million. Now, according to the label, 13% of that is nitrogen. So if I wanted approximately 25 parts per million, I'd need to double my parts per million to 200. Now that all sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Right, example 2. In my 100 parts per million, remember a TDS meter reading parts per million is measuring totally dissolved solids, or as I call it, totally dissolved stuff. Now if you add up the fertiliser elements on the MSU formula, they come to about 40% of the total. What is the other 60%, and does it affect the parts per million reading that you eventually get when you use it? Think that through. If that 60% of unknown stuff affects the parts per million reading, then out of my 100 parts per million, only 40% is food. Therefore, my 13% nitrogen is a much, much lower element of that 100 parts per million. You see what I'm getting at? So I've got the same amount of food reading 100 parts per million, but do I really know how much of that is nitrogen? Really? I'm going to leave that there, because I don't know the answer. But you know, all fertilisers, when you read the analysis, it never adds up to 100%. What's the other bit? What's the other stuff? And does it affect our meters when we're reading our parts per million? I would say probably yes. And if so, when you're getting your parts per million, It's not all food. Therefore, what really is the strength of the feed you're giving your orchids? Do you really know? Again, food for thought. I hope somebody can come up with a genuine answer. I'd love that. Needs to be backed up by a bit of science somewhere, not a bit of guesswork. I can do the guesswork, I'm good at that. But actually getting a truth bit out of that little scenario is not that easy. In addition to that, very, very, very big thank you to Diane. I don't know whether she watches the YouTube channel or is just one of the Facebook group members, but she managed to get the information off of Twitter, which was straight from the RHS, about my Dendrobium friedrichsianum, and managed to get it to post on the Facebook group. I wouldn't have seen that otherwise. I don't use Twitter. You know, I mean, the social media I use is my YouTube channel and my Facebook group. I don't venture out into other things. I did have a little venture into Instagram once, but quite honestly, using Instagram on a computer is a lousy idea. It's based on working with phone apps, that type of thing. It just doesn't work very well on a computer, and so I stopped using it. But nonetheless, thanks a lot, Diane, for getting that information onto the Facebook group. As I said, I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. So there you go, some food for thought. What are we really feeding our orchids when we get a lovely analysis on the packet telling us exactly what's in it? But is it telling us exactly what's in it? I think not. Rhetorical questions there, because I don't know the answers. Have fun with that. See you next time.